It's Monday, which means another Mock Draft Monday here on the channel like usual. This, you're going to hate. I'm going to get that out of the way early. You're going to not like this one because it's not chalk, making a number of weird picks, kind of considering where things have been. Got players rising, have players falling, and yes, that is in the wake of the 2025 NFL Combine, which is officially in the books. Now, it's not just because of that, because yes, it's a bullet point. It's not the end-all, be-all with these things, but at the Combine, you hear different rumors, start to hear about different players, maybe interviewing well or poorly. All it takes is one team to push a player up the board, but also that works the exact opposite way as well, where sometimes a player can fall that you're not expecting because all it takes is one rumor to think a player is maybe going to go higher than they are, and then they don't. Maybe it's an off the field thing. Maybe it's a measurement thing. They don't meet the team size threshold. Anyway, all that considered, I will have a Combine Risers video coming out in the near future, but we're going to kick things off at number 1. I'm going Cam Ward. I don't know that this will be Cam Ward. I kind of think the Giants are going to be trading up for this pick, which, as a Giants fan, I'm not especially excited about because it sounds like it's going to take a lot. If you're trading up for a quarterback, it's never cheap, but no trade today. Maybe next week. I said I was going to do it like a Wheel of Chaos to kind of make some weird picks happen, and then I forgot that the Combine was coming up, so that's going to be getting pushed back a little bit, but I'm starting to get the itch to start firing some trades out there. I think definitely after free agency we'll get one of those for sure, but for the Titans, if they're sticking and picking at number 1, Cam Ward coming out of the Combine, apparently the true, clear, and obvious QB1 in this draft class, which is not a very good quarterback class as it is. The Titans might look to get their QB of the future. They're at number 1 overall. If they like Cam Ward enough, he's going to end up being the number 1 overall pick. At number 2, I know there's injury concern, some type of stress reaction, stress fracture in his foot, but Abdul Carter's still in play, I think, to be one of the first players, if not the first player off the board here. The Browns, maybe not enamored by Shedeur Sanders, end up waiting on quarterback, going Abdul Carter. Maybe they take a QB in round 2. Maybe they sign a quarterback out of free agency or even trade for one, maybe a Kirk Cousins. I'm not really sure. But in this scenario, they don't view Shedeur Sanders high enough to draft him with the 2nd overall pick. They like Abdul Carter, plays one of the most valuable positions in the NFL, and is arguably the best player in this draft. He has a pick at number 2. And I think the Giants are in a similar spot. I don't think there's any telling that Shedeur Sanders is considered high enough to have the Giants take him at number 3 overall. And yes, they absolutely could. The Giants do need a quarterback. It does seem likely that the Giants will bring in a bridge veteran quarterback through either free agency or trade, whether that's Aaron Rodgers or maybe a Kirk Cousins. It also seems likely that they will draft a QB. Now, that's not necessarily here at number 3 with Cam Ward off the board. Could very easily be Shedeur Sanders here. Could be a trade up in real life, but we're going to go with the best player available, and that is very clearly Travis Hunter. I think he's arguably the best player in the draft, offers value on both sides of the ball, but I think he's a better corner in the NFL and then play a little bit of receiver. I just think it's a really tough task to say, hey, you're a primary receiver and then go play cornerback occasionally. I don't know when that scenario would arise. I think it's much easier to scheme offensive touches versus when he would actually play on defense. I don't know how that would work. It's very easy to say this is a corner first, and he's a great corner. Offers a lot of value in, I think, really any scheme. He's a tremendous zone corner, but he's also very athletic and can easily play in a heavy man scheme. So this is just a really, really valuable player overall. And I think it would be a tough player to pass on. I really can't see him going beyond the Jags at number 5. I think Hunter is in play at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Offers value on both sides of the ball. And I don't think any of these top 5 teams are necessarily locked into taking a QB in this range, even if it seems likely. At number 4, have the New England Patriots. And this is a big riser post-combine, but also he was already considered very highly prior to the combine. Will Campbell tested really well. Came in with very short arms, though, 32 and 5/8. Well under the typical tackle threshold in the NFL that we've talked about. but he's a really, really, really good athlete. So could he stick at tackle? The tape is good. I think there's a real possibility. I'm going Armand Membu out of Mizzou. He's one of the best players in this draft. And that was the thought coming into the combine. And it's very clear and obvious coming out of the combine. Since at least 2003, and maybe ever at the NFL combine, but since 2003 is when they implemented, I think, the electronic testing for, the 40 and things like that. Armand Membu is one of 4 players, really ever, at the NFL combine to be 315 or more pounds. He came in at 332, I want to say. He's one of 4 players at that weight, 33 or 315 and above, and he's way higher than that, way heavier than that, to jump at least 30 inches in the vert, which is a test of explosiveness, and also run faster than 5 flat in the 40, which, yes, the 40-yard dash for offensive linemen is not the end-all, be-all. It's more about that 10 and 20-yard split, more functional, but also still running sub-5 is a really good test of athleticism as a whole. So to be that heavy, and he's well over the 315-pound threshold for this stat, to be that athletic is ridiculous. The 4, Armand Membu, one of the best left tackles in the history of the NFL, Trent Williams, one of the best tackles in the NFL right now, multiple-time All-Pro, 4-time straight Pro Bowler, Tristan Wirfs, and also Will Campbell. I said that in a very roundabout way, got distracted breaking down the requirements there, but Membu is a ridiculously good prospect. He has played right tackle at Mizzou. I think he's an NFL right tackle with enough athleticism to play left tackle, and if not, you've got a very good guard. However, everything about him says he can stick at tackle. His arms are 33 and a half. I would say that's long enough. And his movement skills are exceptional. The strength, exceptional. Really, really. Also put up like 31 reps, 32 reps in the bench with long arms. They're long-ish. He's a freak. At number 5, have the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's just hard to go anybody but Mason Graham right now. I look at the available players. I don't know who the Jags would really consider here outside of Mason Graham in this range. I don't necessarily think they need to take an edge rusher, and those are kind of the only other players that might be in consideration, like Shamar Stewart, Jalen Walker, Mykel Williams maybe, even though it's early. And are you taking a guard at number 5 if you think Will Campbell's a guard? You could try him at tackle. It's an option, right? Not necessarily the biggest need for Jacksonville, given their last couple of draft picks have invested fairly high in the position, with Walker Little in the second round, and maybe even more notably, Anton Harrison in the first round. Are you ready to take another tackle? I'm not necessarily sure that you have to. So Mason Graham ends up being the pick at number 5. I just don't know how many options they really have here. I think given the way the board has come together, it would be like Mason Graham, Teteroa McMillan / maybe even Luther Burden in that range, right? Will Campbell maybe is in play. I highly doubt you would take a tight end. So, and maybe Will Johnson, but there's a real chance that Will Johnson falls. And I'm going to tell you, in this mock draft today, he's going to fall. We'll see what his testing looks like at his pro day, but in this mock draft, he's going to fall. We're going to play around with that possibility. And how far could that fall ultimately go? We'll see. At number 6, the Raiders on the clock, I think really would be in between one of the offensive playmakers here. Ashton Jeanty or maybe more probably Shedeur Sanders, although I really think Jeanty makes a ton of sense for the Raiders. But with Sanders making it to number 6, we know the Raiders have a real need at quarterback. And with the blue chip players starting to go off the board, Travis Hunter, maybe Mason Graham, they opt to take a QB stick and pick, get him working with Tom Brady, and really try and land their QB of the future. Whether or not that's Shedeur Sanders obviously remains to be seen, but quarterback is the most valuable position in the NFL. If you can develop them and it works out, it's going to be more valuable than any other position. You just question whether or not that's going to be Shedeur Sanders. But he is the pickup at number 6 here. He's very accurate. Apparently a good leader and well-liked by his teammates. That's always a plus, especially at that position. At number 7, have the New York Jets. And I haven't really done this very much, but given the players on the board and the current situation for the Jets at tackle overall, I think they would heavily consider Will Campbell with this pick. And even if Will Campbell were to go where Membu went, maybe it could be Membu at number 7. The Jets, long term, are not going to have Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses. They are not. Those guys, you might bring one of them back for 2025, maybe none of them. Yes, you drafted Olu Fashanu, top 10 last year, but I don't think that stops you from drafting Will Campbell here at number 7. Is there a defensive player that you like enough to take here? Do you view Will Campbell highly enough to take him at number 7? He is one of the most athletic offensive linemen we've ever seen with good tape. The big detractor for him, it's the short arms. Does that push him to guard? If you think he can stick a tackle, he should have a better chance at right tackle. Typically, those guys are less athletic, but when you have a really good athlete, you have a really good chance to be an elite one. Now, that would be flipping everything because he's a college left tackle. He'd be moving over to that right side. I'm assuming Fashanu would be playing left tackle in this scenario, but not necessarily, right? Fashanu has had experience playing at multiple spots on the offensive line over his college and NFL career. So I think there's a decent chance that he could move over to right tackle and Will Campbell could just insert at left tackle if you wanted to do that. I think he's good enough to be selected here for the Jets given the way the board has fallen. And he's got a chance to stick at tackle because he's athletic enough, but would end up being a great guard. Obviously, guard is not the biggest need for the Jets here. You're drafting him to be a tackle. That would be the idea. We'll see what ends up happening. Patriots at number 8. I'm going with who I think is a top 10 player in this draft, and he had one of the best combine performances of all time. Given height, weight, speed, explosiveness, Shamar Stewart is one of the most athletic defensive linemen we have ever seen. He's about 6'5", maybe a little bit taller than that. And he came in lighter than expected. He was 290-ish playing weight at Texas A&M, 281 at the Senior Bowl, and then comes in a little bit under 270 at the Combine. Obviously really wanted to test well, and he did, posting ridiculous numbers in the broad jump, in the 40. I mean, running sub 4.6 at about 270 pounds is insane. His vert was also very good. I mean, he is just a ridiculous athlete. And even though the production is not there, when you watch him play, it's very easy to see why. Yes, there are times where he gets to the quarterback and doesn't finish or pushes his tackle into the lap of the QB and they get rid of the football. That's not really on the defender, right? Most elite defensive linemen are not recording a sack a game, right? I understand that Shamar Stewart's production is way, way, way less than that. But if you're looking at him playing at A&M, a lot of what he's doing is setting the edge, preparing for zone read, and reading the play and not actually rushing the QB. When you see him with true one-on-one pass rush reps at the Senior Bowl, he dominated. I think if you give him a chance to actually be a full-time edge rusher and say, get after the quarterback, he will do it at an elite level. I think he's got game record potential. I am very, very high on Shamar Stewart as a prospect, and the Panthers really need an upgrade on the defensive side of the ball. How about swing for the fences here and take Shamar Stewart? If Trayvon Walker can go number 1 overall, Shamar Stewart can absolutely go number 8. He absolutely can. This is a big-time potential player and a potential home run for the Panthers. And he's not really raw as a prospect. He's already a good run defender, and I think he's already a good pass rusher, even though the sack total wouldn't necessarily tell you that. I think Shamar Stewart's a really good test of who's actually watching that says, oh, this is not a first-round guy. He doesn't have any sacks. Versus the guys that actually watch him and say, okay, the size is ridiculous, the frame is ridiculous. The pass rush ability is actually pretty good, even if the numbers aren't there. And again, the athleticism is just absolutely ridiculous. I think Stewart is a star in the making. Goes to Carolina at number 8. At number 9, have the Saints drafting someone that did not participate at the Combine, unfortunately, but is a really good fit for the new system under Brandon Staley. I'm going to take Jalen Walker here. I think he's a top 10 player in this class. He is a freak athlete. Why he didn't test at the Combine is beyond me. I mean, I get it. Some of these guys have nothing to prove, only something to lose by testing and performing. But when you have Ashton Genty not participate and both of the top quarterbacks not participate and Tedero and McMillan not participate and for injury or otherwise, Colson Loveland, Tyler Warren not participating. Like, God, Michael Williams not participating. Swessinger sat out. Will Johnson sat out. Travis Hunter sat out. God, I get it. I can't complain because it's their future on the line, right? Make the best decision for you. But as a fan, I can be disappointed. I'm going to be. Jalen Walker here, really good fit for the Brandon Staley defense. Explosive, super athletic edge rusher that can potentially play off the ball a little bit as well. But he is an edge rusher in the NFL. 3-4 outside linebacker, get after the QB. He's got really great speed to power. And I think if he can develop the hands, you're going to have a really special player. But the athletic upside is so high. There's a reason everybody is talking about Jalen Walker like he's a top 10 or maybe even higher player in this draft. I think I happen to prefer Shamar Stewart in a vacuum. Obviously, that would depend based on the team. If you're looking for more of a 3-4 outside linebacker, yeah, Walker's probably the better fit. If you're looking for more of a 4-3 defensive end at this point, Shamar Stewart's probably the better fit, but I think also fits in a 3-4 depending on his playing weight as a defensive end. But off the edge, probably Shamar Stewart's best spot going forward. If you're going to come in at like 267 pounds, the chances of you playing 3-4 defensive end or even 4-3 defensive tackle, you're talking about a 3 tech or even a 5 tech, or those go down a lot. He's just going to end up being an edge rusher, which is fine. And he's definitely athletic enough to do that. He's the most athletic defensive end of all time, given height, weight, speed. Not exaggerating. He is unbelievable. But anyway, Walker, super freak athlete as well. Saints get a good one at number 9. At number 10, man, well, we have Membu off the board. We have Will Campbell off the board. 2 of the top tackles in this, or top offensive linemen, top tackles in this draft. Is it not an offensive lineman here? I'm going to go Ashton Genty. He's the best player available. When you're talking about blue chip players in this draft, I think there are probably 3 before there's another tier down. Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty. Then you get into Mason Graham in that next tier. Will Campbell might be there as well. Ashton Genty is one of the best 3 players in this draft. Without question. As a prospect, he's one of the best 3. The top offensive linemen are off the board. If you don't feel good enough about Kelvin Banks right here, or Donovan Jackson, whoever it might be, you take Ashton Genty. Ben Johnson has seen what elite running back can do for an offense, and he had some very good running backs, great duo. Genty is a special player. These other running backs down the board, it's a good running back class, no question. Amarion Hampton's very good. Quinshawn Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson. These are really good backs. Ashton Genty is a special back. He goes here at number 10. Ben Johnson gets a monster running back to be the focal point of the offense right now. It takes a little bit of the heat off Caleb Williams. It's another running back you can throw to. He's actually a good receiving back, even if he wasn't asked to do that in 2024 as much as he was in 2023. It's just best player available. Yes, the Bears really need to upgrade that offensive line and protect Caleb Williams. Could do something in the trenches as well. But given the players that are flying off the board here, I just think it's clear and obvious that Genty should be the pick. I know it's a running back in the first round. I know it's a running back at 10. You have other needs. Free agency hasn't happened yet. If the Bears go out and they don't upgrade the offensive line in free agency, obviously we're going to pivot here in these mock drafts at number 10 and then into the second round as well. But right now, they could upgrade guard and potentially tackle in free agency and just take the best player available, which is how the NFL draft functions. Genty at number 10. You can't complain when the player is as good as he is. At number 11, have the San Francisco 49ers trading Deebo Samuel. I get it for the 49ers, to be honest. Deebo going into his final year. Drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first last time. Ayuk coming back from injury. You don't want to pay Deebo Samuel when you're going to have to pay Brock Purdy. You're going to have to pay, a lot of players. You're going to lose Javon Hargrave to free agency. You need to upgrade the defensive line. You're going to lose Charvarius Ward. It's not the biggest need, right? So maybe you trade Deebo, try to get younger, and just ditch the money. It's really a salary cap dump is what it is. even though Debo is still quite a good player, even if the production hasn't been what we saw a couple of years ago. He's going to be a fun fit with the Commanders. Obviously, as a Giants fan, I'm not like super stoked on it, but he's 29, gonna be 30 years old coming up pretty soon. I don't really dislike the move for either, to be honest. I didn't make a video about it or anything, but I don't really hate it for either. Luther Burden would be a nice replacement, but I don't think you need a receiver with this pick. I think given the talent on defense, this should be something on defense. Now, there's some really good edge rushers available. There's some really good interior defensive linemen available. Walter Nolan is probably the best interior defensive lineman available after Mason Graham, but apparently there are some maturity questions. And some of that is due to, like moving schools 5 times in 4 years in high school, committing to A&M, transferring to Ole Miss. And this is not like a new story. I've been talking about this for a while, but that was also some of the buzz at the combine. It was that, okay, maturity questions with Walter Nolan, who's going to end up taking this guy. Maybe there ends up being a little bit of a fall despite there being a lot of potential here. I wonder if the Ole Miss jersey scares him away on the defensive line, thinking about Robert Kimdichie. Loved him at Ole Miss, but man, that guy could not keep it together. But yeah, again, maybe it's just not Walter Nolan here. But it doesn't mean it's not necessarily a defensive lineman. How about Mykel Williams from Georgia? Didn't test at the combine, but still elite potential. We're going to talk about the Trayvon Walker thing again. He can go at 1 to the Jags. Mykel Williams absolutely can to the Niners at 11. He's 6'5", 265, 270. Again, didn't test, but played injured all of 2024. Maybe just was looking for a little bit of a break, get fully healthy for his pro day, and then tack the 2025 NFL season. This guy's got unreal potentials. Flashed elite hand usage, but the burst off the line, the ability to defend the run, the ability to play for multiple different alignments on the defensive line. Mykel Williams is a really, really good player with, again, about as much potential as anybody that you're going to find in this draft. Stewart, Walker, Williams, these guys all have like limitless potential, even though they haven't exactly put up unbelievable production up to this point. The Niners need to get younger and especially more physical, bigger on the defensive line, more athletic. Mykel Williams really helps you do a lot of those things. Multiple different alignments, but this is an edge rusher of the future, right? You got Nick Bosa. You like him to stay healthy and productive. Leonard Floyd, maybe more of a designated pass rusher in this scenario. Williams is a base defensive end on first and second down that can set the edge, but also get after the QB on third down. He's a 3-down player that could go even higher than this. I think Will Campbell went to the Jets at 7, but I don't think that Mykel Williams is out of play here. I think he could be 7, 8, 9 in the draft, maybe even 10. Like, this is the Mykel Williams range. Maybe he falls a little bit more than this because of injury and a lot of projection, but I'm thinking he's going top 20 for sure. Goes here at number 11 to the Niners. At number 12, I think you're trying to upgrade the offense here if you are the Cowboys. A lot of the best offensive linemen off the board. Maybe you look to go a different direction. The defensive players are flying off the board, but it's a very good defensive class. I think running back is very much in play here. I'm too scared right now to put Amarion Hampton at number 12. Just seems like a little bit early. But hey, we saw Bijan Robinson go at 8, and there was a thought that, okay, he could go in the early 20s. He goes at number 8, and the Falcons are obviously not regretting that pickup. We saw Jahmyr Gibbs go at number 12. Right? And there wasn't a lot of hype for that pre-draft. It was, okay, Jahmyr Gibbs maybe has an outside shot to get into the first round at the back end. Like, maybe the Cincinnati Bengals could consider him, but he's not like a guaranteed first-round pick. Goes at number 12. Amarion Hampton could be a top 15 pick. Could go at number 12 to the Cowboys or somewhere else. Like, I know it's going to seem like a disaster scenario, but I think there's a chance, depending on where Sanders goes, that Genty goes at number 6 to the Raiders, or maybe even at number 9 to the Saints, something like that. Would the Bears consider Amarion Hampton at 10? I think it would be in consideration. I know that seems like, oh my God, if the Bears do that, I'm not a fan anymore. Whatever. Hampton's a really good player. It is a really good running back class, though, and that maybe gives you some pause, but I'm telling you, man, these running backs are starting to go higher every year. Now that we see teams running more too high, bringing that second safety back out of the box, protecting the explosive plays over the top, running backs getting more and more and more valuable over the past 5 years, especially in the last two. And with the success of Gibbs and Robinson, I think those are the two that you look at and say, okay, we would be comfortable taking Hampton here at number 12. We feel that good about him. All that to say, I'm going to go a different direction. I love Luther Burden as a player. I think Travis Hunter is probably the best receiver in this class. Burden's got a good argument for it. I don't think he's just a slot-only player. I think he can be a Z. CeeDee Lamb, obviously, can be an XZ or slot. But Burden in the slot or the Z, you need more weapons at receiver for sure. And this is a really good one. Can dominate on slot fades. He's athletic enough. Ran really well at the combine as well. 4.41, 4.42. And that's over 200 pounds. These things you got to factor in. A 4.4 flat, basically 40 at 200 or at 205 pounds is really, really good for a guy where his best work is kind of done with the ball in his hands as a powerful, almost extension of the running game sometimes. You can say some similar things about him that you can say about Deebo Samuel, even though it's not to that same level, of course. Burden is a really, really, really good player, and the Cowboys need to improve their receiving core. I still think there's a chance he goes above Teteroa McMillan, who might end up seeing a fall, didn't test at the combine. But I like him as a player, for sure. We'll end up seeing where he goes. Falls happen all the time. You can very easily say, oh, there's no way this guy's going to fall into the top 10, 15, 20, first round, whatever. And then they do. And we're shocked by it. And because we've been so accustomed to seeing that guy go early. We think they're going to go early, and then they don't. These things happen. It's fun to play around with some different scenarios, but Burden is a star in the making, and I would be disappointed to see him go to the Cowboys, but I think he's a really, really good player. As we get to the Dolphins at 13, board has fallen great for them. Jahdae Barron, Tyler Warren, Malachi Starks, and, of course, something on the offensive line. I'm going to go Kelvin Banks here. He's got flexibility to play tackle or guard for the Miami Dolphins here. History, of course, playing left tackle and exclusively left tackle for the Texas Longhorns over the past few years. But 33.5-inch arms. He could play guard, but he moves pretty well. I think he had a really good combine workout as well, moving well in space. He's a really, really good player, and I think he's going to end up going in the top half of the first round. And at 13 feels like a decent landing spot for him there. To the Dolphins that need to upgrade their offensive line. Protect Tua. That guy, I know, sometimes needs to protect himself, but put the biggest wall in front of him that you can. Give him every opportunity to sit in the pocket and make throws untouched. At number 14, the Indianapolis Colts also have had the board fall very well to them. A lot of the same players we just talked about from Miami are a really good fit here for the Colts at 14. Tyler Warren, obviously, Jahdae Barron, Malachi Starks, and then you talk about Nicky Manwari, maybe in that conversation as well. PFF finally starting to move him up a little bit. He's been in the 80s. I've been putting him in the first round. It's all right. It's all right. Also, Will Johnson available, right? What do you want to do here if you were the Indianapolis Colts? I hate to go completely chalk here, but okay, I do want to talk about the possibility of Nicky Manwari to the Colts at 14. Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, is an RAS lover. Like, the height, weight, speed freaks are Indianapolis Colts in the Chris Ballard era. There's been some hits, there have been some misses, right? But that's how they draft. They draft the height, weight, speed freaks, and they figure it out. Whether that's at quarterback, maybe that's not always the best decision, safety, defensive line, wide receiver. This is how they draft. Nick Manwari, just like with Shamar Stewart, is the most athletic safety, strong safety at least, in the history of draft prospects who have tested. He's 6'3", 220 plus pounds, ran a 4.38 in the 40, had like a 44-inch vert, a 1.49 10-yard split, insane broad jump. Oh my goodness, he's an insane athlete, and he's a good football player. He's not just a linebacker that runs around fast at strong safety. This is a guy that can play from the 2 high strong safety spot. He can play in the nickel. He can carry routes vertically down the field. He's got very good ball skills. These are just rare, rare traits and abilities for anybody, let alone a 6'3", 220-pound safety. Even worried to the Colts, even to the Dolphins at 13. You can start to sell me on some of these possibilities. I'm going to go Tyler Warren. I can't see the Colts passing on him. He might be a top 10 player in the draft. And I think if you're going to figure out if Anthony Richardson's the guy or not, you need to put every possible resource around him to figure that out. They need a big upgraded tight end. Yes, it's a big, awesome tight end class, but he's the best one. Or right there with Colston Loveland, depending on exactly what you value at the position. It'd be hard to pass on Warren. Also, I think if he goes earlier, it would be hard to pass on Colston Loveland at that spot. Also did not test, but that was due to injury at the combine. At number 15, have the Atlanta Falcons. And the more I think about it, the more I really see this as a fit. I think he's one of the best players in this draft. And I think, you've seen the Falcons, Terry Fontenot, not really invest in pass rush all that high in the draft. Ebiketie was I think the 38th pick in the draft, but nothing in the first round. It's been all skill players. And maybe it's not necessarily an edge rusher here. It is a talented edge rush class, but I'll tell you who could make a big impact as a pass rusher. It's Jahad Campbell. I love Jahad Campbell as a prospect. Yes, I know I fall in love with linebackers, or at least one or two, every single cycle. I was a huge Junior Colson guy, and I thought he could end up being a first-round pick. I feel really confident that Jahad Campbell will be. He is one of the best players in the draft, and when you factor in how athletic he is, he killed the combine. You factor his bend as a pass rusher with his ability to play in coverage as an off-ball linebacker. The only problem Jahad Campbell really has is he a Mike in the NFL? His read and react is not always the best. His ability to diagnose the run is not always the best. But his athleticism is ridiculous. His field and coverage is really good for a guy that's transitioning to being an off-ball player. This was a 5-star edge recruit to Alabama, and he has that edge rush upside. He's not small. He came in at 6'3", maybe a little under that, 6'2.5", 235. That's big enough to play an impact as a pass rusher, right? But also he can play off the ball. I think Campbell's one of the best players in this draft. I know it's a down year overall, lacking top-end talent in the first round, outside of maybe 5-10 players. I think Campbell's in the conversation to be one of the best 10 players in this draft. I really do. Goes here at 15 to Atlanta. And Terry Fontenot kind of upgrades the pass rush, but might just opt to do that in round 2, where you're going to have some really good players available. James Pierce may get to the second round. Same thing for Mike Green, Donovan Ezeraku. Really, anyone here could get to round 2. Green is a great player. Some off-the-field stuff from the past is kind of coming up. Some allegations, acquitted, but, we'll see how that factors in. No idea if that's going to drop him or not. James Pierce apparently has some stuff as well, although different from Mike Green, for sure. But those guys are not guaranteed to be first-round picks. So you're going to get talent that sneaks in around 2 off the edge in a stacked edge class. At number 16, have the Arizona Cardinals. Stop me if this seems familiar. Sticking and picking and going with an Ohio State tackle with plus athleticism. Josh Simmons makes it to 16 due to some injury stuff and is apparently way ahead of schedule. I can't even say on track, but way ahead of schedule from rehabbing a patellar tendon tear, and Kelvin Beachum can't be your right tackle of the future. He really can't be. He's into his 30s. He was fine for expectations, I guess. You need another guy in the future. And now an Ohio State duo, Paris Johnson Jr., Josh Simmons, there's a worse bunch of young tackles in the league. And that's kind of been the theme so far, is pairing teams with young tackles. You have Onwenu, supposedly, got tackle and Membo in this scenario. Fashanu and Campbell. Banks and, I guess, Patrick Paul, but right now, obviously, Teron Armstead. And then Simmons and Paris Johnson, right? You're starting to get a pretty good offensive line together there in Arizona to protect Kyler Murray. You need help on the defensive line. Round two in this scenario. Simmons is a really good, really athletic tackle. who is a true tackle, but also athletic enough and big enough to move inside the guard if you wanted to do that. Although you'd be absolutely trying him at tackle first. At number 17, have the Cincinnati Bengals going Walter Nolan. Again, we talked about the maturity stuff maybe being a question with him, maybe dropping him a little bit on some teams' boards. But at the end of the day, Nolan has freak potential on the interior. He's extremely explosive, twitchy. The pass rush upside is great. He's like is a penetrating 3-tech that can really make an impact. And I think you're looking for pass rush on the interior. I mean, the Bengals are looking for defensive help everywhere, I guess, right? But you're looking for somebody that can impact the quarterback from the interior of the defensive line. You obviously have one of the best edge rushers in the league in Trey Hendrickson. Get something on the interior. The quickest way to the quarterback is straight up the middle, right? If you have an interior defensive lineman that has the ability to win quickly, it can ruin plays instantly. Walter Nolan has that potential. At number 18, have the Seattle Seahawks. Well, I kind of wanted this to be Nick Eamon. I really did. But I look on the boundary, and Tariq Woolen, just not what you wanted in 2024. Wasn't as good as what you wanted and how he's talked about sometimes. I like Devin Witherspoon a lot. He's a great slot corner. And I know he plays on the outside as well sometimes too, right? But Trey Brown doesn't necessarily need to be a starting boundary corner. And you can say the same about Josh Jobe, who's ever getting reps out there, right? I know it's been a combination, and injuries happen that moves guys all around. With Will Johnson being available at number 18, with the Michigan connection to Mike Macdonald, even though I don't think Mike Macdonald ever would have coached him there, obviously you're going to get every type of review that you would want of Will Johnson. You're going to know his day-to-day. You're going to get the full report from the horse's mouth, the Michigan to Michigan connection for Mike Macdonald and his former colleagues there. And Will Johnson's a really good player. Now, it's concerning that this is a press man corner with great ball skills, or maybe start to question the overall speed. See if some of those can get quelled at his pro day. But he goes into the combine with 30 and an eighth inch arms. That's tiny. For perspective, that's the 9th percentile for cornerback arm length. And Will Johnson's supposed to be a press man corner. And I didn't really see anything in his game that would stop him from doing that. He's 6'2", but 30 and an eighth inch arms are tiny for especially a boundary press man corner. Like Asante Samuel Jr. is 30 and an eighth inch arms. Like, you can point to a lot of different slot corners in that range, yet Will Johnson has that. It's a little weird. And with the short arms, the injury concerns ultimately really play a big factor in dropping him here. That's real. He goes here at 18, though. He's a really good player. I think there's a really good argument that he's a top 5 or 10 player in this draft. Falls to 18, and I don't think that's out of the question, because is Will Johnson a lock top 10 pick? Absolutely not. Not a lock. I think he could go anywhere from 5, probably, but he's not a lock top 10 pick. And if you're not a lock top 10 pick, you could easily go anywhere in the teens or even into the 20s. Will Johnson, I think, is a great player, but there are some concerns that maybe push him down the board a little bit. I promise. At number 19, have the Tampa Bay Bucks. I'm sticking and picking. Teteroa McMillan, the Tet offensive to Tampa. T-Mac is your Mike Evans replacement of the future. Evans has been a Hall of Fame type receiver, very productive, 1,000 yards every year. Keep hearing about how amazing that is. And it speaks to the consistency and the ability to stay healthy and get scheme touches in week 17 or 18 nowadays. But McMillan has a similar skill set to Mike Evans, not even close to the same level of prospect that Mike Evans was coming out, but it's a similar skill set, similar size, and kind of like a plug-and-play type guy. But McMillan's a good athlete. Like, he can be a big slot type guy. He can play the Z, but you're hoping he's your long-term X. At number 20, have the Denver Broncos. How about another guy that really raised his stock at the combine? Mr. 429, Matthew Golden. From the Texas Longhorns, Hook'em Horns, Matthew Golden. What a player. When he ran a 4.30 unofficial, I was absolutely blown away. I could not believe it. You didn't really see this level of speed at Texas. You didn't see Texas really take the top off of any defense because of the quarterback. However, Matthew Golden is a nuanced route runner. He does not drop the football. Tough as nails. When Texas needed a big play, when they needed a touchdown, they needed a first down, who are they going to? It's Matthew Golden every time, especially down the stretch. I love him as a player. I loved him as a transfer from Houston. This is a stud. Matthew Golden, I am convinced, will be a longtime NFL pro because he does the little things well. Yes, we can talk about the guys all time that run really fast, and okay, they're going to go high in the draft because you see the potential. But the guys who are nuanced route runners, do the little things to get open, head fakes, route pacing and timing, and then the ability to be quick out of your release and then out of your break, top of the stem. Matthew Golden then comes out and doesn't drop the ball, by the way, as I've mentioned. Runs a 4.29 official, the fastest time of any player on the offensive side of the ball. I think Harrison was the only guy who ran faster at 4.28 official at corner. Matthew Golden is a superstar type prospect now with elite speed in his bag to go along with doing everything else well. Maybe not an elite prospect. I have him going here at 20. But is he not in play at 12? Maybe even earlier than that? I don't think it's impossible. It's not a crazy good receiver class, but Golden is a good one. At number 21, have the Pittsburgh Steelers going with another Longhorn legend. Horns up, please, in the comments section. How about Jahdae Barron? My favorite player at Texas over his time there. Thorpe Award winner for Best DB in college football in 2024. And I'll tell you another thing. When Jahdae Barron came out, ran 4.39 official. I'm like, who's training these Texas players at the combine? Maybe Isaiah Bond should have got with those guys. See, he still ran great, but Jahdae Barron runs sub 4.4. There were questions about his overall explosiveness. I always saw him as a quick downhill trigger type guy. I wondered if it was more instincts and just, nose for the football, which goes under instincts and kind of ability to watch film and then bring that into the game. Again, that feels like instinctiveness. But he's just always in the right spot at the right time. But it's like, is this guy athletic enough to stick on the boundary? Shorter guy, not even 5'11", shorter arms. But when he just ran the way he did with the tape that he has, a lot of zone coverage at Texas over this past year. But it sounds like from his testing, he's athletic enough to be a factor in man coverage. And he's so instinctive, as I keep mentioning. He is going to be good wherever you want to play him. I think his best role is as a nickel in the NFL, but I don't think a team is going to say, hey, this guy can't be a boundary. Or even a field corner on the boundary as well. So I feel like Jahdae Barron makes a ton of sense here for Pittsburgh, where they could try him in the nickel if they wanted to, or on the boundary. I don't think Jahdae Barron is someone that can't play safety. I think he's physical. He can definitely come down and hit. And I think he's obviously fast enough now, athletic enough to play over the top. I think he is going to be good anywhere you want to put him. Is there Texas bias really, believing that? The tape is so good over the past couple of years at Texas, and the athleticism now to back it up after his incredible combine. I think he ends up being a first-round pick. At number 22, have the LA Chargers going with Mike Green out of Marshall. What a player. He's super athletic. Again, we were robbed of him testing at the combine, but did put up like 28 reps of 225 at the bench. But super athletic, super explosive, deep pass rush bag, shorter arms, maybe a bit of a concern. But if you watch him, he's a speed rusher. His best move, in my opinion, was the ghost move, where you flash hands and then dip it and rip underneath sometimes. Mike Green is a stud. Stud player, good run defender as well, and a good fit for this LA Charger defense that needs a little bit more juice off the edge. Maybe losing Khalil Mack long term. You cannot rely on the health of Joey Bosa. And then you have Tuli Tuipulotu, and then now Mike Green. At number 23, have the Green Bay Packers doing a pick I did 2 months ago. And there was one comment about it, and I remember it. I looked it up before this. This player in the first round, puke emoji. Guess what? Grab the puke bag. I'm doing it again. Maxwell Hairston at number 23. Goody goes out, gets a big-time SEC corner. Someone that can play press man. It's a great fit in the Jeff Hafley defense there in Green Bay. And yeah, what an athlete. Now, Maxwell Hairston was really good in 2023. Wasn't bad in 2024, but dealt with injuries the entire year. He's got very obvious NFL boundary cornerback 1 type size with obviously elite athleticism. Looked good in the on-field drills too. He ran 4.28 in the 40. Maxwell Hairston has a chance to be a first-round pick, and he's such a good fit here for the Packers that I'm pulling the trigger at 23, getting bullish after a big-time combine. At number 24, the Vikings have options here. Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, very tempting, very tempting. I would say that Gray Zabel and Tyler Booker are tempting in this range as well. I'm going to go with I call it a vanity pickup. I'm going with a running back. I'm going to Marion Hampton. It sounds like he's going to end up being a first-round pick. This is a potential landing spot. You're losing Aaron Jones. You need an RB1 type guy. I do think a better one-for-one replacement, if you're looking for an exact play style comp that made Aaron Jones effective in Minnesota and really over his career in Green Bay, is Caleb Johnson. But I don't know that Caleb Johnson's going to get to you in round 2. You want to take him here at 24? You absolutely could. Hampton maybe is a slightly better prospect from what it sounds like the NFL views, even though I really like Caleb Johnson. Hampton is a very, very good athlete at 220 pounds. Killed the on-field workout as well. Has great tape. And is obviously very productive. Good fit here in Minnesota that needs to upgrade their running game. Marion Hampton is a fit. I would not hate you if you said we need to improve against the run. Give me a defensive lineman like Harmon or Grant. I would not hate you if you said, hey, look what the Rams did to us in the postseason. We need to improve our interior offensive line. Give me Zabel. Give me Tyler Booker. But here, it's a Marion Hampton. You get a big-time threat at running back. At number 25, have the Houston Texans going with an offensive lineman. It's Senior Bowl standout. Also tested really well at the combine for the drills he participated in, and obviously killed the on-field workout as well. Was dominant at the Senior Bowl. It's Gray Zabel. He's not a tackle. He's got 32-inch arms, maybe even slightly lower or slightly less than that. Actually, I have his page pulled up here. 32 on the nose. Tested really well. I mean, I got his page right here. Might as well go back to it. 36.5-inch vert. It's one of the best verts in the history of offensive linemen at the combine. Just a measure of explosiveness. Obviously, it doesn't matter how you can jump at tackle or guard. But Zabel is a guard or a center here. Probably a guard right away with the Texans. I think he's got ability to play all 5 spots in the O-line. If there's an injury, you're going to be fine, even though he shouldn't be an every down type tackle. But at guard or center, Zabel projects as a Pro Bowl type player. And at 25, you get to protect C.J. Stroud. This is a good pickup for them. At 26, I think the Rams are really happy because in this scenario, Colston Loveland has fallen to 26. You signed Alaric Jackson to an extension, avoiding free agency. Loveland is one of the best players in this draft, top 15 talent probably. Gets here to 26 for a number of different reasons. And the Rams, who need an upgraded tight end long-term over Tyler Higbee, get a really good one. I think Sean McVay would absolutely love this. And he can block a little bit. He's not really your traditional inline tight end. He's more of like that Joker type, power slot, big slot type. But he can block a little bit on the move. He's a really good prospect. At number 27, it happens every time. The Ravens just end up every single year with an incredible player that falls to them. And here they've got a choice of a bunch. Malachi Starks, James Pierce. I mean, also Josh Connerly potentially be a really good pickup for them as well. You've got a bunch of really, really good options. I am going with South Carolina standout safety Nick Eamon-Wari. What a good fit this is for the Ravens defense. This lets you put Kyle Hamilton back to a more natural position where he really excelled last year. Marcus Williams probably is going to end up being a salary cap casualty, and he's, I think, likely to be cut. Eamon Worry, like we talked about a little bit earlier, is a superstar type prospect, the most athletic safety in the history of the NFL draft via relative athletic score. His RAS was insane because his height, weight, speed, explosiveness, amazing. Amazing. And what a good fit for the Ravens that need to upgrade the back end of their defense. He can play in the nickel. He can play strong safety. I think he can play in the box, of course. Really, really good player. And the Ravens, it's the best spot for him. They just have an ability to develop these DBs, put them in a great position to succeed. I think Malachi Starks makes a ton of sense for them as well. Lions at 28. This is James Pierce. Highly productive, really good athlete. Tore up the combine, not exactly a surprise there. And the Lions get an explosive pass rusher on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson coming back from injury. At 29, the Washington Commanders take one of the probably the 20 best players in this class. I don't think that's weird to say at all. It's Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. He has played guard at Ohio State and has played tackle. When Josh Simmons went down with injury, Jackson stepped in at left tackle despite never playing it, and it was really, really good outside of Abdul Carter, kind of controlling that matchup a little bit, but was really, really good overall. He was so good down the stretch in the college football playoff, and a big reason why Ohio State was able to win a national championship was Donovan Jackson being able to step in at left tackle and play that position, the hardest on the offensive line, at a really, really, really high level. He's got 34-inch arms. So that's at the threshold for a tackle. That's quite long enough, right? He has great movement skills in space, killed the combine on-field workout, even though he didn't decide to participate in the 40 or anything. It seems like he was nursing an injury a little bit, but I still think he moved fairly well through most of these drills. He's a really, really good player, and I think he's a first-round pick. I think he's got a chance to play tackle or guard, but this is a guy who can stick a tackle, certainly athletic enough to do that. Bills at 30, going Malachi Starks. It's just BPA. I think you can make an argument he's a top 10 player in this class very easily. Higher than that based off of 2023. Malachi Starks is a stud player and has the ability to line up at a bunch of different spots. I think he's a true free safety that can play strong safety, that can play the nickel, has great ball skills. His athleticism overall is good enough. His RAS score is not great. Didn't test amazingly overall, but ran a 4.5 flat in the 40. That is plenty good enough, even above average for safeties. Malachi Starks is such an incredibly instinctive player as well. By all accounts, a tremendous leader. I love him as a prospect, and the Bills get a much-needed upgrade here at safety. They've got guys who have played well given their expectations, and maybe like Cole Bishop going forward. Starks is just too good to pass on here for a potential position of need for the Buffalo Bills. At 31, I don't know how the Chiefs could pass on Josh Connerly. He's available at number 31. They need an upgrade at left tackle long term. I know the Chiefs fans are like, we don't need a tackle. We can't develop them. You haven't taken a first-round tackle since Eric Fisher in 2013, so stop that nonsense. Stop it. You've not invested highly in the position. You haven't done it. So Connerly here has a chance to start at left tackle. He has very good size and movement skills at 6'4", 315. And you need to protect Patrick Mahomes. Give him a chance in the pocket, please. Unless you're a Chiefs hater, in which case, yeah, don't take a tackle in the first ever. Take something else here. You don't need a tackle. Mahomes is good enough to do it all by himself. At 32, to wrap up the first round, I'm going with Derek Harmon out of Oregon, likely losing Milton Williams and Josh Sweat. This is your Milton Williams replacement. You're building up a really good interior defensive line with Derek Harmon. And Harmon is one of the few interior defensive linemen, or defensive linemen in general, that weighed more than 310 pounds to run sub 5 in the 40 in a long time. There is a short list of guys who have done that. He's a good athlete, was highly productive at Oregon, led all FBS Division I interior defensive linemen in pressures last year. So this is a guy who is a good pass rusher, a really good athlete, and a really clear position of need here for the Eagles that love to draft in the trenches here in the first round, and they're losing talent all across their defensive line long term. Brandon Graham, gone. Sweat, gone. Milton Williams, gone. All those are likely. We're expecting that. So if you like the edge class down the board, you don't need to go edge here. You have Nolan Smith, you have Bryce Huff, some lighter defensive ends. Continue to bulk up on the interior, and with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Derek Harmon, man, that's a pretty big interior group of defensive linemen, and some athletic ones at that. It's a really tough group to defend in this scenario for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's the post-combine mock draft. Thank you so much for watching. The cat's freaking out. It's time for me to go. She says no second round today, so I don't know if you guys can hear that, but that is the mock draft. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.